Welcome back. So first up for the second half of this week, these are the gear brackets, and so we needed to create some sort of backing plates there to stop those bushings from sliding out. On the other side, obviously, they're held by the gear legs and the gear brackets, but on this side there needed to be something to stop them from sliding out of their the opening that they're in. And so what we did was take some FR4 there and just using a hole saw just cut out those pieces there, and so they'll be bonded into place. And these ones here just need a little bit of milling on the lathe just to sort of offset them a little bit and give them a little bit more breathing room for the bearing. Anyway, so Monday those should be bonded into place, and then those brackets are ready to be bonded onto the bulkhead. And next up, the aluminum tube arrived for the coolant going from the radiator to and from the engine. So I needed to cut these different pieces, and see I've already laid it all out in CAD similar to how I did the turbos. And so basically a bunch of different pieces there needed to be cut, and most of those angles were all cut from 180 degrees. Anyway, had to do all that, and as you can see here in the box, boom, it's all done. So all I need to do is clean those up and then just mark the right angles, and they can go over to Brit for welding. And here's the first of those inner winglet skin plugs, and it's basically been all waxed up as you saw the other day, but now it has the rubber profile on there. So that one is all ready to be skinned or laid up with the mold. And next up, what I had to do is these are the cylinders that are going to be used for the gear retraction, and they're just kind of stock ones that we've got, and we wanted to modify them a little bit. So I had to cut these ends off because we don't want to use those ends. We want to use ones with cylindrical bearings. So anyway, you'll see more of that in a minute. And there's that particular plug, and so Jeff sprayed it up with the black top coat, and it was a little bit cool the other day, and we thought, well, let's just throw it in the oven, that'll set it off really quick. So we did that, and then here it is out of the oven, and already with a second coat on there, and they're working on putting the Cabasil mixture around where the rubber profile is, so they can get that one all underway. But again, handy having the oven. It really saved us a bunch of time on that one. And you're probably thinking, I've seen this one before, and yeah, and what ended up happening was, I did all the work on this one and tapped the two holes in there, and then when I put it into place, I realized that that hole that you're just looking at there was going to run pretty much straight into the Y pipe of the exhaust, and that wasn't ideal. And unfortunately I didn't have that in the CAD, so I didn't realize that was about to happen. So anyway, I had to buy another one of these and start with tapping the holes again. So here's the one, just doing the one on the side first, and got a nice big new bar and that to run the tap now, which makes it much easier. And as you see, things speed up, takes a little longer, but got it all done on that one. And here's the result. So this is the old one, so the same upper hole, but the lower hole is sort of turned around on a different angle, so it'll face away from the exhaust, and it came a little bit close to that mounting hole there, but I think for the prototype it should be fine. So anyway, that's the job done, and we can move on now to getting more work on the turbos done. And here's that mold all finished that the guys are working on, at least the first layers. It still needs to have the heavy layers put on it. That will leave the other one still to do, and then once those are done, then that's all the main wing molds done for the main wing. And here's the header tank in place, just with a couple of bolts just loosely holding it there on the aft bulkhead, and then we had to drill the other holes through to the back side, and then use a 1-inch hole saw to sort of open up those holes and make them larger. As you can see, there's the 1-inch holes there, and the goal here was to sort of make a hard point there, sort of arbitrary, just wherever we needed it. So we're just using a bit of oak doweling and cut some sections off there, and just bonded them into place with some resin, and then that'll get a little patch of carbon fiber over the top of that, and then re-drill that through, and then we got hard points to bolt the tank. And here Zach's been busy working on the other winglet plug. So you see this is the second round of sanding here, and not too much left to do, just under the leading edge there, and a little bit more on the radius there, and then that'll be ready for waxing. And here's the molds for the outer winglet skins, and so these ones now are waxed up, so they are ready to lay the parts, but those will just be sort of getting stored away because we don't need those winglet skins just yet. And back to the gear retraction cylinders. So here I've got the piston and the rod basically out of the cylinder, and because we cut the ends off there, needed to to thread the ends so we can attach our own little rod end on there. And so here, after a couple of hours work on there, those are all threaded now. And this is what the rod end looks like. And of course there's a locking nut that I don't have there, but anyway, they go on there, and so that it's more adjustable, having those sort of those radial bearings in there, or cylindrical bearings in there. And more work for Brett here. So this is a little water pipe there and a little aluminum bung that I got. So the water pipe's off the Audi engine, the bung is something I bought, and that will basically is the return for our hot water system for the heater. And then these ones are the cylinders there for the gear. So that's basically just a bolt end or a sort of big nut end on there that needs to be welded on, and then that makes up the other half of the cylinder. And next up, this was our drive for the governor for the prop, and that arrived. And I remember I showed it to you sort of recently. And so this is what it looks like. So next up for this one is I need to order some slightly larger pulleys. The ones we have are just not quite big enough for what we need, and just not quite the right ratio. And then we'll be tapping these things, or getting the fittings for these. So you've got an inlet, you've got an outlet off to the prop, and then a return there, feed back to the engine, and then the governor bolts onto that big opening plate there, and it goes in where that spline is, the drive for that. And lastly, our axle came in that we were waiting on for the front wheel from Behringer, because we didn't get the right one initially, and so that came in. I'm just waiting on the bolt for that to put that in place, and that arrived today. So here you can see it's all mounted into place. And only one little downside about this whole setup, I mean, it looks super nice, but unfortunately Behringer didn't tell us this, but you're going to fix it eventually. That wheel is spoked on one side and then solid on the other side, which is a bit of a bummer, but that's the only way they can build that one right now to handle the loads that we have for the aircraft. But hopefully we'll be able to sort that out in the future and get exactly the one we want with spokes on both sides. Anyway, that's our update for the second half of this week, and thanks again for watching.